This is a special presentation of 4-Star Sports Media. Welcome to the 4-Star Sports Media College Football Pick'em Show. Now, live from the BA Mask Studios, here's your host, from the Point, Wes Pruitt. What's up, everybody? Razorback Zach here from the 4-Star Media Compound here in Central Arkansas. And, of course, I'm not Wes Pruitt. I'm a hell of a lot better looking than he is. Just kidding. But joined tonight by Nathan Wilson. What's up, Big Nate?
What's up? What's up?
Another day in paradise. Another week of college football in the books, man. In the books. Kind of busy weekend.
Yeah, buddy.
Had a beer fest over the weekend. That was kind of fun. Got to mark a bucket list item off by being a PA announcer over a football stadium, so that was kind of fun. But hope everybody had a great week. We are 48 hours away from week 5 kicking off. And make sure you guys visit 4star.live to stay up to date for all things 4-Star Sports Media related. We've got articles out sponsored by Heritage Fence Company. Some great articles by Christian Johnston covering the Razorbacks, and of course Will Bass and Wes Pruitt's writing articles for Memphis. But Nate, we're going to jump right into this bad boy, and we're going to talk a little bit about the overreactions from Week 4. And I'm going to stay home and say that the overreaction for me was the loss to Texas A&M. But at the same time, I think Miami being a top 25 team was an overreaction as well.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get beat by Middle Tennessee State? So,
I mean, dude, it's college football. That's the thing about it. I mean,
it is.
You never know you never know what's gonna happen. I mean, you got a lot of these teams that, like Middle Tennessee State, they'll step up and upset you if you overlook them. I mean,
look at Georgia. Georgia's supposed to be this dominant team, and they let Kent State score 22 on them, and they struggled.
Exactly.
And the thing is, yes, they won, but I would also almost classify the Georgia Kent State game, as a struggle win for the University of Georgia.
Oh, definitely. Oh, most definitely. I mean, look, my overreaction is Oklahoma, man. Kansas State beat Oklahoma. Yeah. I mean, that was just blowing my mind. I couldn't believe it. But also, there was high talk about, Oklahoma, and I believe it was in it was in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was at OU.
I mean, that's just awful to see. Not really, but it's just awful. These teams, all the upsets are happening at the beginning of the season and knocking a lot of teams who were supposed to be undefeated, knocking them down a peg or two. But I also want to say about USC. Anybody that caught that, I mean, I'm not a big Pac-12 person, but I decided to watch this game against USC and Oregon State. And USC only beat Oregon State 17-14. And they barely got through. Okay?
That's a little surprising.
I mean, dude, it was a good game all the way up. I mean, USC struggled at the beginning. I mean, they scored. They found both of them were held to no points the whole first quarter. Second quarter, they started scoring a little bit, and then the fourth quarter. So when you look at this program, I mean, Caleb Williams did his thing, and he's a lot of people are talking about in this on this USC football team, and he's talking to Heisman as well. But Jordan Adenson, the transfer from Pitt, probably one of the most deadliest, baddest freaking wide receivers out there. I mean, he's unstoppable, and thanks to him, that's what gave USC the go ahead and the win. So, I mean, USC's got to step up a lot more, or we're going to see teams like Oregon beat them. UCLA might upset them. I mean, it's bound to happen for USC.
So you're getting a look tonight. I've got the game on here in the studio. It's Utah State and number 19 BYU. They just kicked off. Utah State's got the ball. I worry about this game for Arkansas coming up, and I know we're kind of bouncing around here. Tony Siracusa is supposed to be joining us at the bottom of the hour of Last Word on Sports. Wes Pruitt is out sick tonight, so I'm picking up the ball and running with it. Of course, joined by Nathan Wilson. So, Nate, what are some of your overreactions for the week? I mean, we've kind of talked about Kansas State, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about Arkansas A&M. Have you got any more?
I mean, yeah, I probably can throw in a few more on you. I think this Auburn-Missouri game, that game. I'm going to be honest with you. Auburn should have lost that game, but
yeah, Auburn should have lost. But again, it comes down to field goal kickers.
It does come down to field goal kickers, but also I've got to hand it to Auburn in the fact that they found, I believe, in my opinion, Robbie Ashford is their starting quarterback. That's who needs to take the snaps for them. He's a freshman, but he's from Hoover, Alabama. But let me tell you something. This man did a remarkable job going out there. I mean, yeah, he threw 2 picks, but still, for him being a freshman coming into a SEC opponent and still, throwing for 372 yards, that's still, in my opinion, that's good for a freshman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Plus, he's a very mobile quarterback as well, so that's a big homer there. But yeah, I have to say Auburn just got lucky. They tend to do that a lot.
Again.
So that was a big shocker to me. But don't hold Missouri out. I know a lot of people talk bad about Missouri and everything, but Missouri should have won it, plain and simple.
Yeah, I don't think Drink is gonna get the can just yet, but I think his seat still is a little bit hotter.
Yeah, I think what happened is that it might have just barely saved Brian Harsin a little bit because he won it. Because they were in talk that if he lost this game against Missouri, that he was gone. They were planning on firing him. Probably after the game.
Right after, were they going to Herm Edwards him or Brett Bielema him?
I'm sure because I mean that whole team wants him gone. I mean the whole program wants him gone. The fans want him gone.
Well, but I mean you can see and you can always tell how much faith that a team has in their head coach by the way they play. I mean look at Arkansas with Chad Morris versus how they are now.
But you also got to look at this. They were on high hopes of letting Brian Harsin go and then try to get Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders roasted them for his comment about going and coaching at Auburn. He's not taking that job.
Why would he? Why?
Exactly. I mean, that's why he's kind of stated, and I'll have to look up the thing that he said. But, I mean, in a way, he said, why would I want to come into a program that's not good at the moment? That's freaking
but at the
when
same
Brian
time,
Harsin took over, it was awful.
Why would you come into a program when they're literally trying to run out your predecessor?
Yeah.
I mean, they were trying to run him out right after his first season. Why? Mm-hmm. Why?
It's Auburn's at the point that they're going to find their coach sooner or later, but it's going to take them a while, man. It really is. And in my opinion, there's a few names that I would say would go and take it. Well, in my opinion, they should go after to try to take it. But Deion is not going to take that job. I think Deion will take Georgia Tech over going.
See, I think he's. I
Auburn.
don't. And who you gonna have? Who you gonna have run Nebraska? All right.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you right now. And Bama fans, if you listen, I want you to pay attention. Bill O'Brien's going to leave Alabama, man. He's going to leave. He's going to go. So? Oh yeah. He's going to get tired of the whole. He's going to feel like he can do the college level. He's going to want to get out there and get his hands dirty and have his own, be his own boss basically. So best way to do it is take the Nebraska job. Now he is a top candidate for that job.
Yeah, I heard Urban Meyer was also a part of it, that they're trying to just throw morals out the window and hire Urban Meyer. I mean, do you really want to throw caution to the wind and hire Urban Meyer?
I think with Urban Meyer, he just needs to stay where he's at and just stay hidden, stay off the grid for a little while.
I would.
Hey,
I know who to go get. A name we haven't heard in a very long time.
What's that?
Jim Tressel.
Oh wow.
We ain't heard that name for a while.
No, we have not.
Pull Bill Snyder out of retirement. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Because, I mean, you'd have to be crazy to take the Nebraska job right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I don't think you're going to find a Division I coach that wants that job. You're going to have to go find a coordinator or an up-and-coming coach with something to prove, because you're literally starting that program in the basement.
Yeah.
Bare cabinet, cobwebs in the corners, mold, rotten wood. You're going to have to gut it and build it from the ground up. Which, that leads me to our next topic of the night. Hottest storylines from week 4. Nate, what do you got, man? What do you got? There were so many.
There's so many, but there's one in particular, and it's been talk on social media this whole week, and I'm going to back it up and say it. Kansas Jayhawks, man. Kansas Jayhawks 4-0 right now. Their wide receiver. Their star quarterback, Jalen Daniels, man, this guy needs to be in the Heisman. I'm saying it right now. Put him in the Heisman race. He has turned this Kansas program around. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, 890 yards. He's got a 98 QBR rating right now. He is number 1 in the QBs right now with the QB ratings.
Okay, and it looks like Utah State just took a 6-0 lead, 7-0 lead, pending the extra point. 10:39 to go there in the first quarter over number 19 BYU. Keep in mind, Utah State's 1-3 and BYU is 3-1. Here's what you have to look at with the 4-0 Kansas Jayhawks. Strength of schedule. Who'd they play to be 4-0? Who did they beat? Did they beat anybody of substance? That's what you have to look at.
Okay. I'm going to give them this. I'm going to give them West Virginia. That was a team they beat in overtime, beat them 55-42. I'll give them that. I'll still give them the Houston game. Houston is a tough matchup in the American League. Yeah, they're struggling right now, and they're jumped out of the top 25. But still,
True.
It's still a Houston team. Duke, I will say Duke, only because Duke is that team that you never know what to expect from Duke, though. I mean, look at it this way. Last week, before week 4 even kicked off, you had schools that were considered basketball schools undefeated. You had Duke
schools
undefeated.
Like Duke, North Carolina,
Kansas, Kentucky. I mean, dude, the list goes on and on. These basketball schools were stepping up and wanting to be called a football school. And Kansas, I really see potential out of Kansas. Now, Kansas got Iowa State this week, and that'll be a good test for them. Especially Iowa State being 3-1. After that, they got TCU. After that, the big test is going to be Oklahoma in Norman. But I still don't see this Oklahoma team being the team that it's been the past couple of years. So I think,
and I've even said it about the Clemson team right now, the number 5 in the country. But even still, they've dropped off a little bit.
But I think this Kansas team, the game you're going to want to circle is Oklahoma State against Kansas, or when Kansas goes to Lubbock, Texas, to play Texas Tech. The Red Raiders are on fire right now, guys.
Yes,
They
they
are
did.
doing the
If I
damn
remember,
thing.
if I remember right, they beat Texas
Yes, dude.
in Austin. Was that in Austin or was that in Lubbock?
No, that was in Lubbock because the
Okay,
head coach said,
I was watching that on the big screen at War Memorial Stadium, broadcasting live from the Beer Fest. So I was paying attention to it, but I wasn't paying attention to it.
okay, so that game was in Lubbock, Texas, and even the head coach said everything comes through Lubbock. Everything comes through Lubbock, and they're going to dominate whoever comes into Lubbock. And I'm telling you, these Texas Tech Red Raiders, man, they're something serious in the Big 12. They are definitely a contender in the Big 12.
They are a contender, but I mean, at this point, who's not a contender in the Big 12?
I mean, do you really want me to answer that?
I mean, it's the Big 12 or the Big 10. It's either like Big 12, Big 10, Big 8, something like whatever it is.
Well, it's the Big 12. But the thing about the Big 12 though is it's still the Power 5 conference. It's one of the Power 5 conferences.
It is.
I mean, and I would actually rank it probably second or third under the SEC.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's go to the Heritage Fence Company live fan feedback. Dusty Hunt says Alabama folds in less than 5 years. Nate, what do you think, man?
Saban's still alive. Saban's still breathing. Saban's still coaching. Alabama's not going to fold, buddy.
Check.
Yeah.
He's chiming in again. He's really active tonight, so appreciate the interaction there, Dustin.
Done. Yes, I agree with this. Nebraska is over. Y'all can hang the Cornhuskers up.
Dusty Hunt is coming after Alabama tonight. He says hottest storyline is Saban admitting NIL is ending power programs, and then then he says not NIL, transfer portal. What do you think about that, Nate?
Wait a minute. What question are you asking me here?
he said the hottest storyline is Nick Saban admitting that the transfer portal is ending power programs like the continual dynasty.
I mean, yeah, because you got a lot of guys. I mean, I can agree and disagree with him on this. The agreeing part is it's changing a lot because of the fact that these players that are considered all-stars, or if they don't get enough playing time, they're going to transfer. They feel like they're good enough to be the starting role. That's why they joined into one of these programs. Now, Saban's whole thing is if you come into a program, you got to dedicate yourself to a program. I mean, Alabama right now, we've got several transfers, and heck, I mean, we talked about this the other night. Me and you, Zach. Eli Ricks, one of the star cornerbacks in the SEC, probably top three for sure. In the past couple of years at LSU, was just a top cornerback. I mean, he was that good. And if you look now, he's hardly getting any playing time in Alabama. I mean,
well, but I think at the same time, I mean, Dusty Hunt does have a point. And even I'll even throw the NIL in there is you're getting a lot of these big name talents. They're getting bigger, better NIL deals closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, instead of going, well, I can go to Alabama and win a national championship, they're looking at, well, I can stay home at a UCLA, USC, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and make, almost $2 million in NIL money.
Yeah. But if you want to talk about somebody winning big in the transfer portal, one name comes to mind. That's Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has taken advantage of that transfer portal and has capitalized on it. The running backs, just the talent, the sure enough talent.
Yeah, and he's pulling. He's got a lot of transfer, but you also got to look at Arkansas. I mean, we pulled a receiver from Georgia and a linebacker from Alabama. Something that never happens.
Yeah.
You've got two powerhouses, and I'm not dogging my own school here, but you've got two mainstaying powerhouses in Georgia in the East and Alabama in the West.
Yep.
And you've got two guys that are making impacts at, and I'm going to say it, and people are going to get pissed, little old Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have two national title contenders. Now, I am going to dog Nick Saban because he made comments, I want to say it was this week.
Yeah.
about Drew Sanders, linebacker
Yeah.
transfer at Arkansas from Alabama. The beginning of the season, he says, well, he would have been a starter had he stayed. Well, this week he comes out and he goes, well, it just didn't work out. He's making an impact here at Arkansas. What didn't work out? You just told him that like 5, 6, 7 weeks ago he was going to be a starter. So what is it, Nick?
Well,
just own up.
Here's my thing about that. Okay, so during the recruiting process for Alabama, and I can say this simply by just seeing it, you could be a 5-star recruit. All right, you could be the top D lineman, linebacker, whatever. When you come to the University of Alabama, you got to compete. You can get outplayed by any of these 3-star, 2 stars, 4 stars. Anybody can play at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how much you're dedicated at doing the job and how well you fit in the offense and defense. You look at our transfers. All right, so I'm just going to name a few. Jamar Gibbs, Georgia Tech. He's an athletic running back. He can run. He can catch. He can do just about anything. And last week against Vanderbilt, he barely ran the ball. He was more on the receiving side of it. You got another guy, Tyler Harrell, in which we haven't seen Tyler yet because he's dealing with a foot injury right now, from Louisville, a speedster, and a track star at that. I mean, he would be a serious weapon in this Alabama offense. But will he, get put directly in? No, probably not, because a lot of these guys have been working their butts off while he's dealing with a foot injury. But will he get his shot? Yeah, he's going to get his shot. And Eli Ricks, I had big hopes out of Eli Ricks coming into this Alabama defense because we struggle with our cornerbacks, our DBs. We struggle in that area. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And having Eli Ricks and already having Jordan Battle, having Branch, and, having McKinstry, all that, Kool-Aid and all that, we had the talent to kind of buff up our cornerbacks and our safeties. And going through, this season, I finally saw Eli Ricks a few times in the Vanderbilt game. He made a pass interference mistake and all that. But I think that if we can get this defense back and, and going back to this whole transfer portal thing, Alabama capitalized, and Jamal Burton.
Yeah.
We got a Georgia wide receiver too, and he's been useful too. I mean, he got, I think, over 100 yards receiving in the game against Vanderbilt, but no touchdown, in which he had plenty of time, and we'll get into that about what happened because, I mean, for instance, Bryce Young, he's got to focus a little bit better than what he's doing. He's overthrowing, throwing short. He's getting scared in the pocket. He's got to run.
He's not looking like the Heisman quarterback that he's been and he's not looking as dynamic as he's been the last couple of years.
I say he's got the Heisman blues, man. When you win the Heisman and then the next year it's like you fall apart.
Well, I mean, it's like you win the Heisman and now you're like, all right, now what?
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to ask you this, Nick. Who we saw Scott Frost fired at Nebraska. And now we've seen Jeff Collins and the AD at Georgia Tech get let go. So my question to you tonight is, who's the next one to be fired? Who's next on the list? Because the dominoes, we're reaching that halfway point. We're reaching the halfway point in the season in a week or so. The dominoes are going to start to fall. So who's next in line?
I think Scott Satterfield at Louisville. I think he's one to be watching on the chopping block. Jeff Scott, South Florida, would be another good one. And I'm going to go ahead and say this: Neil Brown at West Virginia. That's my 3 coaches right now. I just feel like the chopping block's coming for one of them 3, and I feel like it's coming a lot sooner. I would say Jimbo Fisher, but Jimbo Fisher did beat Arkansas. Luckily,
Jimbo saved his job for at least another week, and
I think he stayed. I think he kept the job because next week is Alabama.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how that game goes, I'll have more of a kind of an answer on how soon he's going to be gone. Because if he comes in Tuscaloosa and Alabama just raw dogs them, and it's not even pretty, you might as well get Jimbo Fisher and his son with his, if anybody saw the freaking picture of his son wearing the damn chains around his neck, look, I guess Eminem, little Eminem Jr. or something, I don't know, but if it definitely ain't football for that boy, I can tell you that much.
Funny. That's fun. No, and you're absolutely right. Brian Kelly is one of them, and Josh Wilbanks is right. I don't think you're going to see him fired this year, though. I think they're going to give him at least another year, unless the wheels just completely fall off.
But I think Brian Kelly might. Well, I mean, yeah, I give him one more year because it's always that little space there that they give him. Little freebie, basically. Okay, this season so you got to do something next year.
I gotta throw this comment up here because this is funny, and then we got to go to break because I think Tony Siracusa from Last Word on Sports is going to be on here in a few minutes. Kevin Edwards says, "I bet the dudes who set up the SMU slush fund in the '80s that led to the death penalty hate this NIL stuff." Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would definitely agree with that.
I would agree with that. Last question before we go to break: give me a team that isn't ranked but should be. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, the Kansas Jayhawks.
Well, you took my one, and I appreciate you taking it. But I think Kansas is ranked this week, aren't they? Didn't they get in the top?
No, they are not.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and say this. Texas Tech. That's who I'm picking. I think Texas Tech should be ranked. I mean, they can be 25 or whatever, at the bottom, but I think Texas Tech should be in the top 25 right now.
Yeah, I agree. Give me a team that's in the top 25 that shouldn't be. And I put you on the spot because I want to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Because if you're going to put somebody in there that isn't ranked that should be, I want to know if you've got somebody that is ranked that should not be.
Okay. If I have to choose a team that's top 25 that shouldn't be top 25, I'm just going to say Wake Forest. I'm going to probably hit myself on that one, but I'm going to say Wake Forest. Last week, it was a nail biter, and it came down to the wire. But I just think that Wake Forest is not top 25 yet. I think they still got a lot of things to do on that defense. Defense fell apart. I mean, dude, it was a shootout. 51-45, that's a shootout. That just shows you don't have a defense.
And Nate, we're going to jump into that Wake Forest game because Tony Siracusa is coming up on the other side of the break. You're watching the 4-Star Sports Media College Football Roundtable on the 4-Star Sports Radio Network. Back in 60 seconds. All right, welcome back to the 4-Star Sports Media College Football Roundtable. I'm Razorback Zach, coming to you from the 4-Star Media Compound here in Central Arkansas, joined by Nathan Wilson, of course, every week. And now joined by Last Word on Sports, our special guest picker of the week, Tony Siracusa. What's up, sir? How are you?
My college football brothers, how you doing tonight?
What's going on?
Another week in the books. It's moving too fast, Tony.
It is. We're a third of the way through the season already. I mean, how does that happen?
I mean, I want to cry because we'll blink and it'll be all over. We'll be talking national title. We'll be talking playoffs. I mean,
Yep.
I can't do it.
You know what happens with college football season is everything is so compressed. It's like you wait forever for it to start, and then once it starts, man, it goes. It's high. Talking about the bowl games and everything gets spread out, and then you're just kind of like, wow, that went way too fast.
Well, I mean, it was like me and Nathan were talking about. I mean, used to a couple of years back, you had all the what we used to call cupcake teams in the first couple of weeks of the season.
Sure.
And right about now, you're talking, okay, so these teams, all the Power Fives are going to start their conference play. We're looking at teams now that are in the thick of it.
Sure. Yeah, you've got teams that are headed into their third conference game already in some cases. And so things have already picked up. The other thing, too, is with college football, even though you have the early signing period in December, it kind of negated the February signing period. So there's not as much fun built around that. And then there's just too long of a gap. If you look at the NFL did a good job of making itself newsworthy every month. By the time you get that free agent window that you got to cover, and then you have the OTAs that you got to cover, and you got rookie camp. So there's something every month, and we miss that for months at a time with college football.
Absolutely. So, Tony, we're going to jump right into this and talk a little ACC. Sure. Who is your surprise team out of the Atlantic Coastal Conference?
There you go.
So far.
It is tough. I think right now, one of the things you got to look at is Syracuse, how well Syracuse is playing. I went into the season not sure how Dino Baber still had a job. And that's no disrespect to Dino because I knew him back when he was the receivers coach at UCLA long time ago. But they look better than I expected. I think you look at, if you break down some of the specifics and not look at a specific team, but just some of the granular, North Carolina is surprising because, man, Gene Chiswick's defense is really bad. I mean, that offense has got to put up 40-plus points a game to be in the game every year or every week, rather. And that's just that's a bad defense. So I'm a little surprised there. I'm surprised Miami is as bad as they are. I didn't think they would be that good. I really didn't. When it came to the ACC preseason votes, I had Pitt winning the division, even though there were a lot of believers in Miami. Mario Cristobal, I had him for a few years when I was covering the Pac-12 out on the West Coast and, watched him at Oregon. And he's one of those guys who likes to build toughness, physical toughness, and mental toughness, and he's got a long way to go at Miami. They are just not even close to there. Van Dyke is having just a very disappointing season. He's so mediocre right now. He's got going into this weekend, I think he's got like 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and it's worse than I thought it would be. So those are my surprises so far.
What's your thoughts on NC State right now? They're making a lot of noise. And, they got Clemson this weekend.
Yes.
So what's your thoughts on NC State right now?
Here's my thing with NC State. It's kind of been consistent going into the season and through the season. They're playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulders. They still feel disrespected. I don't know how you reach top 10 status and still think you're disrespected. But there's a lot of mentality of, and they went into it from last season with, we didn't get to finish. They didn't get to play in the bowl game and the Holiday Bowl when it got canceled the day of the game. And they felt kind of robbed. They didn't get to finish what they started. So there's a lot of that mentality. I was concerned for them going into the season that they wouldn't be able to turn the page. They wouldn't be able to focus on the here and now, but they have. and they've done a really good job of that. Leary is a really good quarterback. But what I think you got to look at with North Carolina State is that linebacking core is as good as you're going to find anywhere in the country.
Right.
It's a huge, huge game against Clemson this weekend.
Now,
If Clemson wins, Clemson puts a stranglehold on the Atlantic Division, and it's a really tough game because NC State's defense under Dave Dorn has gotten very good.
so speaking of teams right now, a lot of people, we've talked in the past couple of weeks about this Florida State team and Mike Norvell. What kind of insight can you give us on this? I mean, is Florida State making a comeback to be a competitor in the ACC, or? Oh.
I think they are. It's probably a little too simplistic just to say Florida State's back. Mm-hmm. I think, when we talked to Dave Clawson at Wake Forest earlier in the week, and of course, Wake Forest travels to Tallahassee this week, Clawson had an interesting take on it. He said what Mike Norvell has done, and he said better than anyone else in the country, was take the players he inherited when he took over the program and the players that were already committed, that were coming in, and you're going to honor those commitments, and mix them with the transfer portal. Not go too heavy one or the other, but really do that blend to fill in the gaps with the transfer portal and fill in what he needs. And, Clawson said he thinks Norvell has done a better job of that than pretty much anybody in the country. It took a lot of years. Florida State fans are not patient. They're not known for being patient. They want the Florida State of the 80s and the 90s. Yeah. They want the Bobby Bowden.
Bobby Bowden, yeah.
And, you're not going to get that. The game, that was 40 years ago. The game has changed. Recruiting has changed. The transfer portal has changed it. But I think Norvell has done a good job of now finally starting to show where he put his stamp on the program. Jordan Travis is a terrific quarterback, and the improvement you've seen from him over the last year or two is tremendous. I mean, he's throwing the ball at about a 66% completion rate right now. I think he's thrown one interception on the season. So I think the offense is really clicking. But what they put up, what was it, like 530 yards last week, against Boston College, and they held BC to 235. BC is not very good. But if you can hold teams 300 or less on a regular basis, then your defense is definitely back.
Tony, the ACC is known as the league of quarterbacks right now.
Right.
Who would you have at the top of your list as the best quarterback in the conference right now? I mean, you have we talked to you a few weeks ago about Wake Forest and the injury to
Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman. Right. Thank you. We all know the blunder I had last week, and I'm not going to make that mistake again.
I make him routinely.
But who do you have? I mean, give me your top five.
Wow, top five. Well, I think Leary is definitely either number 1 or 1A. I think he's right there. I think Hartman is right there. I mean, Hartman had a ridiculously good game last week, 6 touchdown passes against Clemson, broke his own school record for most touchdown passes in a game. I think that there are guys that we looked at when the season started who we expected to be good, who really, I'm not sure what's happened to them. Malik Cunningham at Louisville has been all over the place. I mean, he's had some terrible games where you wonder what happened to his game, and then he's played well. The same thing with Brennan at Virginia. Not even close to what we expected to see this year. I'm looking at Clemson and saying, this is the DJ Uiagalelei that Clemson fans were hoping to get last year. This is the guy who showed up his freshman year when Trevor Lawrence was hurt and had that brilliant game against Notre Dame back in 2020. This is that guy. He played last week against Wake Forest. He played probably what I would say is the second best game of his career, and putting the Notre Dame game of 2020 as number 1. He lost 30 pounds in the offseason. It's a big deal. I mean, I can't imagine a quarterback playing the game at 260 pounds like he was last season. He's down to 230. When you see him in person, his legs are still the size of tree trunks, but he's a little bit more mobile now. And what you saw Wake Forest have a problem with last week was getting pressure into the backfield, but not being able to bring him down. That he's regained some of the mobility that we saw in high school and in his freshman year, where he's keeping plays alive because he's still got the body strength that you're not going to drag him down by his shirt tail. And he can move his feet to keep plays alive. So I would definitely put DJ right up there. Keaton Slovis, I was not particularly warm on at Pitt going into the season because I saw Slovis in his time at USC, and I knew he could be rather sporadic, but he's playing fine. You know, he's not going to set the conference on fire, but he's doing the job that's being asked of him in that Pat Narduzzi offense, and so yeah, he's doing fine. So I would put him there also. I'm not sure if I named 5, but there's 4 or 5.
I'll take that answer.
Well, let me ask you about this quarterback. We talked about Syracuse at the beginning when we brought you on. I want to hear about and I want to make sure Garrett Schrader, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now I watched Garrett Schrader a little bit in his game last week. He looked great, mobile quarterback, speedster to me. I mean, the guy's got some wheels on him. What do you think he's bringing into this Syracuse offense? I mean, would you put him with the QBs in the top 5, or is he right?
I would put him there. Maybe even ahead of Slovis, because I think he's playing a little bit above expectations right now, where Slovis is playing more at expectations. And you know, look, Schrader's blessed because Syracuse has a good run game right now, so the entire thing isn't relying on him. His offensive line is doing an infinitely better job than anything we've seen at Syracuse in the past couple of years. So he's got the room. He's got the time in the pocket. He's always had the physical ability, but he seemed to take the game too quickly. In other words, you know, too quick to tuck and run under pressure. Errant throws, bad decisions, throwing into double coverage. The game seems to have slowed down for him. And for a quarterback, of course, that's what you want, so that they're going through the progressions and seeing the entire field. And he seems to be having that kind of season right now. So, yeah, I would definitely put him in that category. Like I said, either even with Slovis or maybe even a little bit above.
Go ahead, Zach.
So sorry, I had a complete brain fart there for a minute.
Okay.
I've got the Utah State BYU game on.
Yeah, I had that on also.
I'm doing a little scouting for BYU and Arkansas in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
Talking with Tony Siracusa of Last Word on Sports, with the firing of Jeff Collins and the AD at Georgia Tech, I mean, now you have, and I may be outdating information here, but so far we have 2 coaches that are in power that have now been fired, with Scott Frost at Nebraska and now Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. Who's the third?
Herm Edwards at Arizona State.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Who would you like to see step into that Georgia Tech role, head coaching role?
You know, look, it's a bit of a tough job because you've got the academics of Georgia Tech that, you know, you have to accept you're not going to be able to get in, every 4 and 5-star recruit. But it's Atlanta and it's Georgia. There's so much talent in that area, even going down to Florida. There's so much talent to be had. I know Deion's name is going to get brought up time and time again. Goodness, I hope he doesn't take that job. I really don't. I like Deion at the HBCU right now, right at Jackson State. I like him. I like what he's doing in the name of HBCUs. There are going to be other jobs that open up that I think he can turn around quicker. I think Georgia Tech is a 3 to 4 year reclamation project. You know, you look at the offense that they were running when they had Paul Johnson there, right? And you're running the triple option offense, and you've got 85 scholarship players who were recruited to run the triple option. And then Johnson's gone, and the next coach comes in, and he's like, what am I supposed to do with all these guys? You know, they're all here to run the triple option, and nobody other than Army and maybe Navy still runs the triple option. And so
In fact, I don't think Army even runs the triple option anymore.
The first game of the season when I was in the press box at Wake Forest and I was looking up some of the stats of the other games, and Army had like 280 yards passing, and I kept hitting refresh because I didn't believe it was true. I was waiting for them to flip the stats and show that as the running yards. Look, I think it's 3 to 4 years to get Georgia Tech back to a competitive program again. And I'd hate to see Deion, I hate to use this word, waste his time doing that. It's not a waste of time, but I think Deion's got a bigger landscape that he can go to. Look, maybe Deion, when Brian Harsin gets fired from Auburn, which, seems to be, imminent in any given week, hey, maybe that's a place, for Deion.
Nathan's no.
I would hate it. I would hate it for him in the sense of the Auburn boosters are some of the most impatient people and irrational people this side of the Tennessee boosters. But so you would hate, but I think Deion could win there, and I think Deion can recruit there. And man, those insurance commercials with Nick Saban and Deion would take on a whole new element, right? It would be fabulous.
Not to mention. Go ahead, Nick.
I can honestly say this: that Deion Sanders, if he did the Auburn job is just like the Georgia Tech job. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a lot of rebuilding to get that Auburn program back up. But Deion coming in, I really honestly think Deion would give Nick Saban a run for his money in recruiting in the state of Alabama. I think he probably could out recruit him in the state too.
I was just fixing to say that too.
Yeah, well, and part of it is that Auburn's going to make the commitment. Auburn's going to make the financial commitment. Georgia Tech talks about making a commitment to athletics, to football, but you don't really see it. Yeah. And I'm talking about the administration, the president of the university on down. They talk about putting a competitive product on the field, but you don't see them putting their money where their mouth is. Auburn, they'll throw anything they need that Deion says he needs.
I mean, they'll throw toilet paper at this point because that's what they're good at throwing is toilet paper and wasting it.
There'll be all kinds of new NIL money. They'll be whatever they need.
Not to mention it would make SEC Media Days that much more interesting.
Yeah. And we love things like that. I mean, it's when I was doing the Pac-12, man, we loved having Mike Leach there because, you just ask him 2 questions and turn on the recorder and just let him go. Exactly. I will never, and now that he's in the SEC, we can talk about this. I will never forget asking Mike Leach, how hard was it to keep his players off social media during the season? Don't let them get all caught up in that. And Leach went into this whole thing about everybody is just staring at their phone and doing this. And he said, and as everybody's my witness, he said, I miss the days when we could just go to the rock quarry and play and throw rocks at each other. I'm like, where were you raised, man? The guy came from Northern California. What are you talking about? Rock quarries and playing in the rock quarries. He goes off on these tangents that are just hilarious to cover. So putting Deion in SEC Media Days, having Leach there, having King Nick there, it would definitely liven it up a little bit.
Well, I got this question for you, and we see all these different conferences merging and all these teams leaving their conference to join a different conference. Is there a team that the ACC is looking at that might be coming to join into the ACC within a few years or so?
The SEC is the ACC rather is complicated because of the grant of rights on the TV contracts. It is one of the most ridiculous contracts that could possibly exist within a conference. They signed it in, I want to say 2016. And it goes through 2034. And it ties all of those schools into the ACC. You basically are held hostage. You can't leave because even if you leave, the ACC owns your television rights.
Yeah.
So you could go, Clemson could go to, to Pac-12 and they would, and the ACC would say, we own your TV rights. You're limited in what you can do where you go.
Right.
Here comes the hitch to that. I've read through the grant of rights sitting over there on my desk. I have a copy of it, the signed copy of the grant of rights with all the signature pages from each of the teams. There is a clause in there that allows teams to leave within the constructs of the conference constitution. So then you go find the conference constitution. There is a phrase in there where the conference has committed to being financially competitive with the media rights.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree the ACC is no longer competitive in its TV deal. When the new Big Ten contract kicks in 2023, Rutgers is going to be making twice as much as Clemson in their TV deal. No one in their right mind thinks that makes sense, right?
Right.
So you go back to your question then about getting somebody in. They would love to have Notre Dame come in, be a full-fledged member. It requires a 75% approval vote of the members of the conference to get that to happen. We know, because we have talked to people, that there are some schools who will hold their vote hostage in exchange for renegotiating the grant of rights. There are at least 3 schools who will say, we'll give you the yes vote you need, but we want to renegotiate the grant of rights so that we're not held hostage for another 12 years. So there's some complexities when it comes to the ACC trying to add somebody.
Okay. Zach, you got anything else?
I don't have anything else. Tony, you want to hang around and pick a couple of games with us?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to go pay a couple of bills real quick. And then we're going to come back and pick 6 different games. We got 6 brand new games this week. And we're going to get Tony's thoughts on them. But you are watching and listening to the 4-Star Sports Media College Football Roundtable on the 4-Star Sports Radio Network. Back in 60 seconds. All right, welcome back to the College Football Roundtable on the 4-Star Sports Radio Network. Razorback Zach coming to you from the 4-Star Media Compound here in Central Arkansas, otherwise known as the Hog Pen on Wednesday nights, joined by Nathan Wilson and special guest picker Tony Siracusa of Last Word on Sports, who filled us in on the ACC and a couple of other places around college football before the break. Always great having Tony on because I get smarter every time he comes.
I appreciate that, guys.
I feel like I'm learning a little bit more about the ACC than I should
Right?
know about it. So.
Yeah, it's a complex place, and it's going to get more complex. I'll let you in. I'll let your people in on a very. It's becoming less well known. I mean, less guarded secret. But there's some potential changes in the ACC also beyond just the schools. Watch for Commissioner Jim Phillips to interview for the Chicago Bears president job.
Whoa!
I'm telling you,
Whoa! Tony dropping bombs on this show.
We have sources that tell us that now whether he gets it is a whole other issue. But we have very reliable sources that tell us he will interview for the Chicago Bears president job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we are going to jump right into this, and we're going to start with our 4-Star Sports Media Game of the Week. And I don't know who should pick first, Tony, Nate, or me, because number 2, Alabama, 4-0, traveling to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on my number 20 Arkansas Razorbacks. They're also 3-1, 17-point underdogs to the number 2 Alabama Crimson Tide. That's a 2:30 kickoff on CBS, and we're going to let Mr. Tony go first. So, Tony, who you got?
I think this game is closer than the point spread. I really do. I don't think Arkansas is going to beat them, but I do think Arkansas can hang with them for a good 3 to 3.5 quarters before Alabama. When I say pull away, Alabama will win by somewhere between 8 and 9.8 to 10 points, we'll call it. I think the talent level, there's just still a disparity there between the two programs. And so I think it's a little early for Arkansas. I love the turnaround on the Arkansas program the last couple of years. I truly do. I think it's fun to watch. They're just not at that Alabama level yet. So I'm going with Alabama, but they don't cover.
Oh, all right, Nate. Let me have it, dude.
No. I mean, I agree with Tony. I don't think this is going to be, a big blowout. You got to understand, going into Fayetteville, that's not a place that you're going to blow a team out at. I mean, Fayetteville is a packed house full of, the red out that's going to be happening. So you're going to have a lot of Arkansas fans going crazy, but don't forget we wear red too.
I was going to say
it's called crimson. It's called crimson though, but still.
Let me tell you about this red out. People over here in Arkansas are losing their minds. They're going, "Why is it red out for another team that wears red?" Y'all's away jerseys are white.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't make sense to do a white out.
Right. But
see, Nate, I'm not the sharpest turtle in the shed or the fastest crayon in the sea. But come on now.
I think when you look at this game, I think you got to understand this. This is 2 great coaches. Sam Pittman, what he's done at Arkansas has really turned this program around in a big way. Then you got Nick Saban, who just signed another freaking extension. Y'all might as well get ready. Saban's going to be 80-something years old on the sidelines in a wheelchair, still chewing out players.
What was the record of the oldest coach, Nate? How old was Joe Paul when he finished coaching? Wasn't he like 80, almost 90?
He was up there, dude.
I was going to say about 107 somewhere.
Yeah, like it was up there.
Saban's going to be like 100 years old, and he's still going to be screaming and yelling on the sidelines.
Can I just say this about Saban? Saban is going to be, and this is, hang with me while I make this analogy. Saban is going to be like the Queen of England. All right, that there are all these heirs. There are all these heirs and all these names waiting to take Saban's place. It's Dabo Sweeney. It's Jim. It's someone else waiting. Yeah. But the person with the crown at the top is going to outlive them. It's still going to be coaching into their mid-90s.
I am rebuilding the intro for this show. Yeah. I am cutting that out, and that is going to be a sound bite in the intro. That right there.
But going back to this matchup, you got 2 great defenses. Both defenses are struggling in the secondary.
Yeah.
And Zach, I think we both can admit that our secondary on Alabama and on Arkansas is not that great. So we're dependent on our linebackers. Alabama's dependent on Henry Atoto. We're dependent on our edge rushers, Dallas Turner. Will Anderson, for them to step up. But not to mention the offense. Now, our offense has been a little bit there for a little bit. I mean, Bryce Young has looked good in the pocket, but it's like I talked to Zach about it a few weeks ago. He had a rushing touchdown against, I believe it was UL Monroe, and just had his head down. Like he was just, I'm like, dude, you scored a touchdown. He's just walking back to the sideline, shaking his head like it wasn't good enough for him. But I think with this Alabama team going into this game, this offensive wide, you got to have Jamar Gibbs getting routine, running the ball, catching the ball, moving around that offense. You got to get these wide receivers, Kobe Patient. Yeah, I want to make sure I said that right. But you got Kobe, you got Holden, you got JoJo Earl is supposed to be suited up for this game. I'm still not heard anything about Tyler Harrell, transfer from Louisville. I'm hoping he was suited up in the game against Vanderbilt. I have not heard if he's suiting up in this one. I hope so because we need that speed. We need that speed on the wide receivers. And but when you look at this Alabama team, we do not do so well away. Everybody saw the Texas game, not so pretty. We looked like we made too many penalties. Alabama's got to capitalize on not lowering the penalties that we had in the past couple of games. We've got to step up our defense. KJ Jefferson is a big guy and a big mobile quarterback at that, who can also sling the ball down the field. We've got to find a way to put pressure on KJ to also contain him in that pocket. But also on the offensive side, we got to watch out for Drew Sanders, former Alabama linebacker. So it's going to be a close matchup, but my pick is going to stay the same. I'm going with Alabama in this one.
Well, I'm just going to be the oddball out.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be, Zach.
I will. Look. And this is honest feeling here. Look, after last week's debacle, I don't think you're going to see the same Arkansas team. I think that they hit it hard in practice this week. KJ does not need to run the ball inside the 5-yard line. I think he needs to give to Rocket Sanders to punch it in because he's taking too many risks. He's trying to be the hero, and he doesn't have to be. He doesn't need to be. So you're going to see a very different Arkansas team. You're going to see a pissed-off Arkansas team. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're going to be playing pissed off because last week in Dallas, they should have won that game. That game, and I said it on Inside the Hog Pen this week, it should never have come down to Cam Little kicking that field goal. If it honestly had to, that bad snap is what did it for Arkansas last week. So you're going to see a team that's going to come out. They're going to play possessed. They're going to play pissed off. I'm going to put Alabama on upset alert, but I'm not going to put them on an upset alert to the point of it's going to be 14 points or more. No, it's not even going to be a 10-point. I'm talking like we're squeaking out of their maximum 7-point win if they're lucky. But I think you're going to see this team come out punching on all cylinders and punching like it's a world title fight. And the winner of this game, and Tony, you can disagree with me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. But the winner of this game goes on to Atlanta to play for the SEC title.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have an argument against that. I really don't. I mean, I look, if Arkansas can knock off Alabama. No, look, if Arkansas is good enough to knock off Alabama, and Alabama, frankly, looked underprepared in the Texas game. I mean, it wasn't just that the execution was poor. The scheming wasn't carried out well. So if Arkansas can pull this off, then I don't see how you downgrade Arkansas from being able to go play for the conference championship. If you can knock off Alabama, why not?
Very true. Absolutely. And not to mention, Alabama might actually overlook us looking ahead to A&M next week.
Could be.
Wishful thinking. We're probably going to get slaughtered. But you know what? I got wishful thinking.
Well, I can tell you this real quick. Will Anderson made a statement this whole week that he's just mad that the rest of his season, he's just going to play basically pissed off and for teams to watch out. So Will Anderson's coming in with high hopes because he's not like it. I mean, he made too many mistakes, and
I have so many comments for what he said. So our next game on the list, number 7 Kentucky, 4-0, traveling to Oxford to take on the number 14 Ole Miss Rebel Black Bear Land Sharks. Also 4-0, they're a 7-point favorite. That's an 11 a.m. kickoff on ESPN immediately following game day. Nathan, you got the Wildcats or the Rebel Black Bear Land Sharks?
So I'm gonna stay in Oxford on this one. I think Lane Kiffin, he is a talented coach, and he can. And we talked earlier, he's done an amazing job in the transfer portal. Not to mention his running back Zachary Evans is a bona fide beast right now. Now Jackson Dart, I'm not sold on Jackson Dart just yet. He's still got some working up to do, but the fact that they're going to be in Oxford, I'm not technically so. I mean, the spread I think was what 7, or I think it's 7 right now. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. I give it a field goal in this one, but I think Ole Miss will pull away in this. And I'm going to say this: Ole Miss is a dark horse that nobody needs to overlook because Lane Kiffin, he is a talented coach, and he's found his spot in Oxford, and he's doing an amazing job right now. So nobody needs to overlook Ole Miss.
Tony, how about you, sir?
I think that what people need to watch is this is not the Lane Kiffin offense we're used to seeing. And it's because I think Jackson Dart still has a lot of, as you pointed out, a lot of questions to answer. Look, I saw the triumvirate, if you will, at USC. The USC fans loved JT Daniels when he was there. And then as soon as he had a bad game or two, they couldn't wait for Keaton Slovis. And Daniels gets hurt, and it becomes Keaton Slovis's job. And they loved Keaton Slovis till he had a bad game or two, and they couldn't wait for Jackson Dart. And Slovis gets hurt, and now all 3 of them are playing somewhere else. So it as someone who covered a lot of West Coast football, it amuses me. But this is an Ole Miss team that relies on the run game way more than what we're used to seeing out of a Lane Kiffin team. I mean, these guys are averaging about 280 yards a game right now on the ground, which is just stunning when you think of a Lane Kiffin offense. That having been said, I'm sold on Will Levis and Kentucky. I think Levis is a terrific quarterback. He's completing 68% of his passes right now. What he did in the swamp at Florida had me check the boxes and say, all right, I'm in. You know, he had a good year last year. Surprised a lot of people, even me to some degree. But when I saw what he did against Florida, check this box, check that box, ran the offense, ran a hurry-up offense when needed, controlled the clock. So I'm going with Kentucky on this.
You know, guys, Kentucky's on a roll right now, and I don't know how you can stop this Wildcat train. So give me Kentucky, and I think Ole Miss is going to have a great season, but I don't think you can stop Kentucky this go around. Our next game, Temple 2-2 traveling to Memphis to take on the 3-1 Memphis Tigers, who are a 19-point favorite. Also an 11 a.m. kickoff on the U, and that is ESPNU. Give me Memphis big. Tony, how about you, sir?
Memphis, and they cover.
Yep.
I'm Memphis, and they cover. And Zach, can you tell me who the quarterback is at Temple?
Temple?
And who his dad is?
You just put me on the spot. All
right, I'm gonna give you a little hint.
Wait. Is it Kurt Warner's kid, isn't it?
There you go.
Yeah.
EJ Warner. Yep.
You didn't think I knew that, did you?
I was waiting for it.
Didn't think I knew that. Did you? Look, I'm not gonna lie. I
got Memphis in this game covering. Memphis at home, it's a tough place. So yeah, give me Memphis in this.
Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I took a shot in the dark and just kind of guessed at that. Not even gonna try to sugarcoat that one. All right, so our next game on the list is another top 25 matchup. Number 9, Oklahoma State Cowboys, 3-0 on the season, traveling to Waco, Texas, to the number 16 Baylor Bears, 3-1, who are a 2.5-point favorite. That's actually gone down in the last day or so. 2:30 kickoff on Fox. Mr. Tony, who do you have, the Cowboys or the Bears?
I like Baylor's defense against the run. I like what they did. I mean, the defense looked really good against BYU. I mean, it was a tough loss, but they looked really good. And nobody in the country has run for more than 3 yards per carry. Well, in the country on their schedule to this point. Don't want to exaggerate too far, but no one on their schedule has run for more than 3 yards per carry in a game against the Baylor defense. So, I think, Oklahoma State, they look good when they beat Arizona State, but it turns out Arizona State stinks. So it kind of like, not so impressive anymore. And I just kind of feel like their running game hasn't really kicked in. Baylor's going to shut down the run. It's going to make Oklahoma State one-dimensional. I'm going with Baylor in this game.
Nate, how about you? Cowboys or the Bears?
Man, I've always picked against the Baylor in Waco, and I've ate my words every time I've done it. I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to go with Baylor in this. I think it might turn into a shootout like we usually see Oklahoma State and Baylor, but I think Baylor pulls it out at home in Waco. So yeah, give me the Baylor Bears beating the Mullets.
I'm gonna start using that next week. Give me the Bears. And I remember when McLean Stadium was being built. I was actually stationed at Fort Hood when I was in the military, and actually would drive by there, going back and forth to coming up to Arkansas, coming home every couple of months, and saw that stadium being built. Very beautiful stadium.
Well, look, I can tell you this, dude. If you want to see a stadium being built, you ought to look at the Kansas State, their stadium that they're projecting to what it's supposed to look like. It's something.
Yeah, our next matchup, this one's kind of interesting, and we threw this in here just because to see how Kansas would do. It's Iowa State 3-1, who is a 3-point favorite, traveling to Lawrence, Kansas, to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. 4-0, 2:30 kickoff on ESPN2. Nate, do the Jayhawks move to 5-0?
Look, man, I like Kansas. All right, I like what they're doing. I like how everything's going, especially at quarterback. I mean, Daniels is, to what I've told you at the beginning of the show, he needs some little Heisman show. He needs to be put in there. I mean, even if you got to put him at the bottom of the list, I don't care. But a 98% QB rating. I know a lot of people say, well, he hasn't played nobody, and that's true. But he'll get his test with Iowa State and on with Oklahoma later on in the season. And of course, I believe also he has Baylor in there too, if I'm not mistaken, either Baylor or Oklahoma State. But I'm going to give it to – I'm going to back up Kansas on this. I mean, I like to see a basketball school finally become a football school, kind of like Kentucky's doing. So I'm going to back up Kansas on this one. I'm going to go with the Jayhawks.
Tony, how about you, sir?
Here's the thing. Iowa State's defense is not giving up big plays, and they're only giving up 2.5 yards per carry, per run. And again, not giving up any big plays. However, Kansas is hitting on 67% of their third down conversions. That is just mind-boggling. 67%. And I am sold on Jalen Daniels, man. I mean, 71% completion rate. He's got 900 yards passing already. It's in Lawrence. When I saw, they sold out a football game last week. What the heck?
Yeah,
it was packed. I am older than both of you guys, and I remember seeing 1,000 people at a Kansas football game, and it was because they were giving away basketball preseason tickets. So
Hey, there's an idea,
right? So I'm like, hey, why not, man? I'm gonna stay on the Kansas bandwagon until they prove me otherwise.
Well, and I also want to add this too. It's not just his throwing ability. He's got 38 carries for 320 yards, 4 touchdowns already. Yeah. So I mean, he's a mobile guy too. So give the man some spotlight, something, please.
Agreed.
Give me the Jayhawks. All right, our final game of the night is the Heritage Fence Company on the Fence game of the week, and it's number 10 NC State 4-0, traveling to number 5 Clemson. Also 4-0. They're a 7-point favorite there at home. 6:30 kickoff. It's the primetime game on ABC. Give me the Wolfpack. Because I'm so tired of seeing Clemson and Georgia and Ohio State and Alabama. Give me the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it they do?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the Wolfpack or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna back. I'm gonna agree. Clemson. I mean, but the thing is, Clemson at home is tough, dude. I mean, just to see Dabo Swinney run down the hill, I thought he was gonna fall. I
thought he was gonna fall, man.
Y'all better catch him. Y'all better catch him. But
I was waiting for him to just face plant. So
I actually wanted to see what his time was because he's a speedster, man. I mean, I bet his 40 looked good. Yes. But I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna stay with this Wolfpack, man. This defense with the Wolfpack, they're just outstanding this year. And I have high hopes for them in the ACC. I'm hoping that at the beginning of the season, I always said, well, Miami's going to sneak in there and come out. All talk was about Miami. You just now start hearing about NC State, and nobody ever talks about it. So I'd love to see NC State pull off the upset against Clemson.
One thing on Dabo running down the hill. Next time you watch them run down, notice that as they have that carpet, there's a big bump in the hill right there. They put a staff member on each side of that bump so the players know there's the bump. Don't trip over it. Keep an eye on that because it's what they do. Look, Devin Leary is really good. I think I made that clear early, but he's taken target practice against UConn and Charleston Southern, and he struggled against East Carolina. I'm going to throw in this factor as I sit here in Charlotte and we're preparing for 50-mile-an-hour winds here because the hurricane that was potentially going to derail the Wake Forest Florida State game took 2 hard turns to the east, is out on water, and is going back over the Carolinas this weekend. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be wet and raining. South Carolina and North Carolina, the states, not the schools, are supposed to get 2 to 3 full days of rain. It's going to be messy out there. And I don't trust North Carolina State's run game enough where you don't have to have Leary throwing it up all night. Here's the other thing. Dabo Swinney no longer releases a depth chart on Monday or Tuesday like everybody else. He's like, you'll know what it is when they line up on Saturday. I think part of the reason for doing that is because week to week, he's waiting for Xavier Thomas to come back. There was talk that he was going to be back for the Wake Forest game because he was healing so much faster with his ankle and his foot injury. I think he comes back this week, and that D-line just becomes all the better. It's already probably one of the 2 best in the country. So I'm going with Clemson on this. I'm going with Clemson, and the home field advantage and the messy weather is going to make a difference.
All right. So as we're wrapping up, gentlemen, do we have any final thoughts before we close this bad boy out?
I'll say this about the Clemson-Wake Forest game, and I can't believe I forgot to mention it. Will Shipley, keep an eye on this guy throughout the season. He is an outstanding running back. As a sophomore, I mean, he's just making plays, making the big plays, scoring nonstop. I think he's got 353 yards rushing right now with, I think, 7 touchdowns. But it's just his average. I mean, it's at 6.8 right now, but it's deadly. He still breaks through. And when he breaks through into the secondary, he's gone. Forget about it. He's hard to stop. He reminds me of a Christian McCaffrey, and that's what he reminds me of. So be on the lookout for Will Shipley, looking at possibly being in the Heisman race maybe next year or the year after that, however long he stays at Clemson.
I will make I think one of the things you need to watch, because I think there's another big game in the ACC, and it's the Wake Forest Florida State game. Wake Forest needs this bounce back. They truly do. It's a lot is expected of them. We published an article a week ago before the Clemson game, which basically said, if not now, when? If you're not going to beat Clemson now, when are you going to beat them? Because from a skill position standpoint, they matched up so well with Clemson, and it was a shootout, and it was a terrific game. there was a lot of mental and emotional consternation from the players after the game. You saw Michael Juergens, the starting center, take the podium and have to fight back tears. He was so upset over the loss. You saw Sam Hartman was still in his uniform. He hadn't even showered or changed clothes or anything, and he was pissed off. He actually walked out of the press conference after about 4 questions, just saying, "I just don't want to do this." It was going to take a lot for Dave Clawson to gather that team back together. He told us on Tuesday, this was the first year that we really thought that every person in that locker room thought we were going to beat Clemson, that this was it. This was the year to do it. So that double overtime loss really took a sting. You can't afford to lose back-to-back conference games like this if you're Wake Forest. There is a lot riding on this for Wake Forest. The mental and emotional makeup of the team is going to be huge. Having to go down as of Tuesday, Clawson was already talking about, we don't know what's going to happen with the hurricane and all of that. And he took a lot of flack for that. He made a comment that said, if the ACC doesn't do the right thing, we will. And people took that to mean he wanted to cancel. What he meant was he wanted assurances that you don't know where the hurricane's going to go. It's changing, half day by half day. He wanted to make sure the city was going to have electricity. The hotel was going to be able to provide food for the team. It was going to be safe for them to get around, things like that. So he took a lot of flack. There's been a lot of distraction. The team needs to focus. Hartman's got to put the team on his back and carry them. And so I think that's a huge game to watch because you can easily, look, Wake Forest still has to play North Carolina State. They still have some big games ahead of them. They need this game dramatically on Saturday.
I totally agree. And that pick, and I'm going to tell you, that game, and I hope a lot of people tune into that game of just how big it's going to be. Yeah, Wake Forest needs to bounce back after that Clemson game. And also Florida State still got to prove that they're still on the right path to getting back to the top where they were before.
Agreed.
Well, that is going to do it for us, for Mr. Tony Siracusa of The Last Word on Sports, Nathan Wilson. I am Razorback Zach from the 4-Star Sports Media Compound here in Central Arkansas. Big thank you to everybody that was watching tonight and our sponsor, Heritage Fence Company. Until next time, so long, everybody.
Yeah,